Good evening and welcome. This is the news at 6 on Mitv. I am Tomi Singh Adebukola. The 5 governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and some Maghreb party leaders on Sunday said they were still open to reconciliation within the party. They also announced the formation of the Integrity Group. The G5 governors and some party leaders issued a communique after a strategic meeting in Lagos. Addressing newsmen after his closed-door meeting, former Plateau State Governor Jonah Jang said it has not closed the door on reconciling with Atiku. Reading the communique, Jang said, having reviewed the issues in the party, they stand on the position they took at the last meeting in Port Harcourt, where they hereby reiterated the G5's position that a window for reconciliation in the PDP remains open. Governor Seyi Makinde of your state had announced the formation of the Integrity Group, saying it is the face behind the struggle within the PDP. You will recall that the presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and Governor Nyesom Wike have been at daggers drawn over the removal of ASIU and the need for the South to produce the next party's national chairman. Still on politics, the Southwest Grassroots Campaign Mobilization Group has been launched in Osun State to work for the electoral success of the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in the 2023 election. The Grassroots Campaign Mobilization Group is said to be an offshoot of the Directorate wing of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Flagging off the group in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, the host, Governor Boyega Oyetola, charged coordinators and members of the group to let Tinubu's message of hope resonate in every nook and cranny of their local levels in their respective states. Oyetola noted that Tinubu and Shetima have demonstrated commitment to transcend laudable achievements in both Lagos and Borno as governors, hence the need to ensure victory for them in 2023.
I'm persuaded that you are all well prepared to coordinate yourselves to ride on the wings of technology and the halls of traditional mobilization, to heal the cities and the hinterland until the last person imbibes the message of renewed hope. Indeed, you are the group through whose voice the message of renewed hope will resonate town to town, village to village, and door to door.
Asiwaju is a good product. Asiwaju is the answer to our prayers. There will be no more kidnapping. There will be no more unemployment for our children. There will be no more inflation. Once we have Asiwaju, he has done it before.
Let them see the reason why Asiwaju must be voted for. To let them know that Asiwaju has the capacity, the capability, the experience and exposure to move Nigeria forward.
What are the solutions Asiwaju is going to provide? He has said it in the manifesto, and that's one of the reasons in which we are here today, to tell them about the issue of education, to tell them about the youth, to tell them about the issue of security, to tell them about the issue of economy, to tell them about the issue of currency fluctuation. They have to go back home equipped in telling the grassroots reason why they should vote Asiwaju.
Starting from here, they should penetrate into each household, into each polling unit, into each ward and local government, and preach the gospel of the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Now away from politics, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have arrested a 56-year-old widow and mother of 4 at Jishegiri Kende, Sidika, the Murtala Muhammad International Airport, Ikeja, over her attempt to traffic 400 grams of cocaine concealed in her footwear to Makkah, Saudi Arabia. The suspect, who claims to be a businesswoman trading in adult and children wares on Lagos Island, was intercepted on Sunday, the 13th of November, while trying to board Qatar Airways flight going to Saudi Arabia via Doha. Upon a critical examination of the pair of sandals she was wearing, 2 parcels of cocaine weighing 400 grams were recovered from them. In the same vein, attempts by tricycle parts seller Ayu Adekende Tayo to send 1 kilogram of tramadol, 225 milligram, and rofipanol to Istanbul, Turkey, via Cairo on an Egypt airline flight same day were also frustrated by the NDLE operatives who arrested them. He was at the airport to hand over the drugs hidden in a bag of food items to an intending passenger. Idowayo Ade was arrested before he succeeded in doing that. An intending passenger to a man via Askai Airline, Agbamuche Bright in Keoye, and a lady Adeoye Oluwakemi Fatima, who accompanied him to present a bag containing varieties of foodstuff and body lotion, which were used to conceal 1.10 kilogram of cannabis, and some rofinol capsules were also arrested at the departure hall of the Lagos airport on the 18th of November. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP has urged President Muhammadu Buhari to promptly set up a presidential panel of inquiry to thoroughly, impartially and effectively and transparently investigate spending on our social safety nets and poverty alleviation programs and projects executed between 2015 and 2022. SERAP also urged him to ensure the findings of such investigation are widely published and suspected perpetrators of corruption and mismanagement of public funds meant to take care of the poor should face prosecution if there is sufficient evidence of any stolen public funds should be also recovered. A recent report by the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) shows damning revelations that some 133 million Nigerians are poor, despite the government reportedly spending 500 billion naira yearly on social investment programs. In the letter dated 19th of November 2022 and signed by SERAP Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare, the organization said the report suggests a grave violation of public trust and the lack of political will to genuinely address poverty and uphold your government's constitutional and international human rights obligations. The letter copied to Olivia de Scuta, UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, read in part that these grim revelations by the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics shows the failure to fulfill the often repeated promise to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty and leave no one behind. The capacity of monitoring distressed and dilapidated buildings in Lagos State to prevent the recurring incident of being a collapse has continued to become a worrying subject among stakeholders in the building construction industry and the state government. This is because of the disagreement between the State Building Control Agency, LAPSCA, and stakeholders in the built environment over monitoring of the effective buildings across the state. This report by our correspondent Fatuki Kule and presented from our studio X-rays the capacity of LAPSCA to monitor the effective buildings across the mega city called Lagos.
Building collapse has become a recurring incident in Lagos, a mega city where at times, just when one thinks the frequent cases of buildings caving in has become history, a building suddenly collapses. Buildings collapse when they become distressed and dilapidated over the years, but with Lagos having its fair share of such incidents, which often claims lives, apart from injuries and temporary displacement, the need for monitoring of the effective structure has become imperative.
Most of the buildings that are collapsing, most of them, they are developed by developers, by desperate developers who purchase land from original owners and develop for a period of, let's say, 20 to 25 years. So whatever they are putting in place, they have their target. By the time it's 20 years, they must have recouped their money. So they don't know. Most of them don't care about the structure they are putting in place, the stability, in terms of the quality of cement, quality of sand, gravel, and even use of professionals.
Monitoring of distressed buildings in some cases leads to demolition of structures considered no longer safe for human habitation by the State Building Control Agency, LABSCA. However, does LABSCA have the capacity to monitor distressed buildings spread across Lagos?
Anything that is not according to law and they feel that is not good, they hold it to the government to call and report. And when the government is coming in, they won't disturb us. And that is an example that they have made. And I thank them. Governor Sanwo-Olu is seizing this opportunity to say thank you.
The personnel of the two agencies, they are very thin on the ground. And that is a fact. In terms of personnel, in terms of vehicles, in terms of materials, in terms of equipment, they are very lean on ground. And I think that it's high time to employ and to beef up these agencies like we have done to LIRS.
LABSCA is grossly inadequate in controlling buildings, and not because they don't have professionals. They have professionals, but how many buildings to a professional under LABSCA? And so they can't do it effectively because they don't have the strength. How many buildings will they control? How many officers will they have? And in Alimosho alone, how many buildings are going on, construction work are going on that they want to control? Before you know it, they are overwhelmed. And in some other cases too, you find out that they don't even have the security personnel that are even enough in case they meet danger, they meet resistance on all these sites.
I think the Lagos State Building Control Agency is adequately equipped to monitor distressed buildings in Lagos State. However, because Lagos State is a mega city that is constantly expanding, the agency also has to constantly increase its capacity.
Though demolition of defective buildings is being vigorously pursued, some stakeholders in the building construction industry believe that monitoring of distressed buildings should not be left alone to government.
The community allows it. If we raise eyebrow for such, definitely, and how do we do this? We get the authority concerned informed immediately. We send pictures to them, we give them the evidence of what is actually happening around us, so that government will come and do the necessary thing that they need to do. Because let me tell you, government cannot, I said it earlier, government cannot be everywhere. We supposed to help government to actually get all these things done.
Yes, I believe the Lagos State Building Control Agency should include and involve the public in monitoring distressed buildings in Lagos State. There's a lot that the public can do. For instance, if any member of the public sees a distressed building, there should be a call line, there should be a customer control line, or a customer line that they can call to report distressed buildings.
The state government and stakeholders in the building construction industry believe that there is the need for concerted effort, with residents playing a role in ridding the state of inhabitable structures.
Lagos State Building Control Agency have been going about identify all distressed buildings. All the existing structures and all ongoing are fit for habitation. Any distressed or dilapidated building that is not fit for habitation has to be removed. That's exactly what we are doing here. And all the statutory notices have been served. Most of the ones we are removing today, we've been on it for the past 4 or 5 years.
While it continues to monitor dilapidated buildings across the mega city, LABSCA is making it clear that no building will be spared, regardless of the location or personalities involved.
In a related development, the Lagos State government has also called for the supervision of every stage of building construction by professionals in the built environment to avert the incessant case of building collapse in the state. General Manager of the State Building Control Agency, LABSCA, Bolaoke, stated this in Lagos in an interview with newsmen on the sidelines of an event on capacitive development of staff of the agency. Architect Oki stressed the need for developers and owners of buildings under construction to get a building plan approval and authorization before the commencement of any construction. He also made a strong case for materials used for building construction to pass through material testing, which is critical in avoiding building collapse.
The only way we can monitor substandard that is why we have the department that we call that. We have the insurance department and we have the department that the monitoring officer that tells them that for any construction or any mix, any material that you are using on site, you are supposed to go and do material testing for it. That tells you whether the material is good or not. And that also tells you whether the concrete mix is the right aggregate that is supposed to be. That's what we call the cube test that we ask them to do. And they do the test before they can proceed from one step to the other. Normally, building material tests are supposed to be done when they are doing the foundation, when you're having columns, the decking, even the roof. All those things are things that is expected that they need to test. And that is one of the reasons that we have this, to let them know there are really important things and they are required.
The Lagos State government says it is making proactive efforts towards ensuring that everybody, including the vulnerable, the physically challenged, and all people with disability are included in its policy of inclusivity. The General Manager of the State Office for Disability, Lasoda Oluwadare Ogudairo, told MITV News in Lagos that the government, through his office, was bridging the gap that has hitherto existed, which go against the disabled in the society. He said the people with disability must have a sense of belonging. According to him, Lesotho, through the agency, have access to things that they were initially excluded as the state government intensified its policy of inclusivity and bridging the gap.
You know, as we are developing the highbrow areas, we are also upgrading, we are also planning the low-end communities to alleviate the standard of living of the people. And that impacts significantly on inclusion. Our recreational, business and residential facilities must cover the gap of inclusion in terms of design and allocation and accessibility for all, including and especially persons with disability. And because that disability had been a major part of the conversation for today, shows how Lagos is intentional and strategic in ensuring that nobody indeed, and of course no place is left behind in terms of inclusion for all, and also including persons with disability.
There is an urgent and increasing need for enforcement of environmental laws and regulations put in place by the government for such laws to produce the desired result on environmental sustainability. Ogun State Commissioner for Environment, Ola Oresoya, stated this while speaking with MITV News crew in Lagos. He canvassed for a structure to put in place while pointing out ignorance and habit of the people often go against environmental laws with negative consequence and degradation of the environment. On the state of cities and towns in Nigeria, Oresoya admitted that there have been much talk in the area and was quick to point out there have been equally actions on improving the condition of cities across the country.
In place, and as a structure that will make sure if they obey the law, there's a reprimand for it, you'll be forced to obey. So it's a falls back on us as the government. The people will respond to what we want them to do. And we need to do our job in government to make people comply with the rules and regulations. And most of those actions, the impact, maybe they are not as dramatic as we want them to be, but there have been actions going on in several ways with all the talk every year. This has been a guide. Every year we come around, we set agenda for government what to do. And good, I think some of us are in government also. So there's a take home from all this program. There's a take home for us, and there's been a guide to what we have to do every year. So it's not been all talk, no action. There have been talk, there have been action. It may be gradual, but definitely we'll get there.
We'll take a break now and return with foreign stories right after.
We don't die for where we did. dìbò fún Dr. Abdulaziz Ọlájídé Adédìran Jandor fún ipò gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó lábẹ́ àsíá ẹgbẹ́ òṣèlú Ọlọ́mbrẹ́là PDP. Power to the people.
Welcome back. 12 people died and 30 others were wounded and taken to nearby hospitals on Sunday when the bus collided with a truck near the resort city of Hurghada in eastern Egypt. A court official said the prosecutors had opened an inquiry into the accident on the road between Hurghada and Ras Gharib along the Red Sea coast. In a statement, the health ministry said the crash happened just days after 20 people were killed when the minibus flipped and plunged into a canal in the Nile Delta. Egypt's roads are notoriously dangerous and often badly maintained, while drivers often break speed limits and other traffic rules. The country, with 104 million inhabitants, saw 7,000 deaths in traffic accidents just last year. So sad. Turkey has launched air raids on Kurdish targets in Iraq and Syria a week after a bombing in Istanbul, which it blames on Kurdish militants, but the banned Kurdish PKK group denied carrying out the Istanbul attack. The raids, dubbed Operation Claw Sword, struck Kurdish bases which were being used to launch attacks on Turkey. A Syrian Kurdish spokesperson said 2 villages populated with internally displaced persons were hit. As the air raids began, the Turkish Defense Ministry tweeted that a hour of reckoning had arrived, alongside a picture of a fighter plane taken off and footage of an explosion. And almost 200 countries have struck a landmark deal to launch a fund to support nations worst hit by climate change. Poor countries have been pushing for 30 years for rich countries to help foot the bill for loss and damage caused by global warming. But critics say the COP27 UN summit in Egypt did not go far enough on cutting the emissions that cause climate change. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it did not address the need for drastic reductions, and the planet is still in the emergency room.
For real climate action. That is what we need. COP27 took place not far from Mount Sinai, a site that is central to many faiths and to the story of Moses or Musa. It's fitting. Climate chaos is a crisis of biblical proportions. The signs are everywhere. Instead of a burning bush, we have a burning planet. From the beginning, this conference has been driven by 2 overriding themes: justice and ambition. Justice for those on the front lines who did so little to cause the crisis, including the victims of the recent floods in Pakistan that inundated 1/3 of the country.
We'll now take a break. When we come back this time, we'll bring you sports stories.
We don't tire for where we dey, oh yeah. Now so promise and fail, oh yeah. And it don't take, we don't dey wait. PDP don't come again. Jandor malole she Alama tell you. Jandor for governor. Jandor under PDP. Jandor 2023. Jandor Alama tell you. Jandor for governor. Jandor for Lagos. Jandor for everybody. Yeah. Jandor Jafeku. Fight for Lagos. Jafeku. Jandor Jafeku. Fight for Lagos. Jafeku.
Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Ọlájídé Adédìran Jandor as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Welcome back. Romelu Lukaku will not play for Belgium in the World Cup until at least their final Group F match against Croatia. The forward did not take part in the Red Devils' first proper training session since they arrived in Qatar on Friday, as he continues his recovery from a hamstring injury. Lukaku is Belgium's all-time top scorer with 68 goals and 102 appearances and was called up to the World Cup squad despite coach Roberto Martinez admitting he was not fully fit. The 29-year-old has endured a difficult past 18 months, moving back to Inter Milan on loan after a dismal season with Chelsea. The speculation surrounding Roberto Firmino's tenure at Anfield is finally been resolved, with the Brazilian forward looking to extend his contract until 2025. Reports say the veteran striker will be associated with the Reds until 2025, despite his falling down the pecking order lately. Although Firmino had been impactful off the bench, Jurgen Klopp preferred playing Uruguayan forward Darwin Núñez over him, leaving Firmino on the bench. The 31-year-old also failed to make the flight to Qatar, and a move away from Liverpool looked evident, with Italian giants Juventus leading the race. And finally, in basketball, Jurgen Clarkson scored 28 points, including 8 straight in the final 148 in the Utah Jazz 118-113 victory over Portland Trail Blazers. Malik Beasley had 29 points off the bench to help Utah take the Western Conference lead at 12-6. He was a force throughout the game, especially in the second quarter, where he scored 15 points. Despite leading by as many as 19 in the third quarter, the game came down to final moments, and the Jazz were able to hang on to improve to 12-6 on the season. That's it on the news at 6 on MITV. Join us at 9 o'clock for today's primetime news. I am Tomisi Adebukola. Good evening.